Join us on a journey through Gretsch heritage. With today's guest, 𝗟𝗑𝗧𝗦𝗧. Episode 5, The Wartime Years.
Greetings to the worldwide Gretsch community. My name is Lucas van Gretsch, and I would like to welcome you to this fifth installment of Gretsch Heritage. I feel like with every episode, my press roll just gets crisper and crisper. What do you guys think? For those of you tuning in for the first time, I'm what you would call a modern day member of the Gretsch family. It's my mother's brother, my uncle Fred Gretsch, who's the current owner of Gretsch. And it's my mother's father's father's father, my great-great-grandfather, Friedrich Gretsch, who started the company all the way back in 1883. And usually at this point, I show a picture of Friedrich, but today we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to show you this picture, which I grabbed off the wall while I was walking out of my house today. This is Friedrich Gretsch's this is the first Gretsch company car. So Friedrich Gretsch, the founder, he anglicized his name in 1883 in the 1870s when he arrived. He anglicized his name to Fred Gretsch. This is on this buggy is the address Middleton, of the Middleton shop, and that was the shop that Gretsch was at from 1880 to 1894. So this is from the late 1880s or early 1890s, and this was Friedrich Gretsch's, or Fred Gretsch's, ride to work, 1 horsepower. How about that? And one really neat thing here is the logo. Let me see if I can point this right. There's a logo right here, which we're gonna hopefully work on a little bit and see if we can maybe bring that back. We're trying to figure out exactly how it looks. In any case, just thought I'd do a little show and tell. We have set the stage for quite a show today. First, we'll be talking about the period in Gretch history from 1940 to 1945. Yet another often overlooked yet very important period in the Gretch history. And I feel like I say that every episode. I guess in my mind, if it's not about Gretsch in the 50s and 60s, I feel like it's an overlooked period. Then in our second segment, we will be checking in with Norwegian drum guru 𝗟𝗑𝗧𝗦𝗧 from Gitarhuset, a Gretsch dealer in Norway. And we will talk to him about some drums and see what he's up to, and take the temperature about the situation in Norway and the drumming situation, the drumming community. Should be lots of fun. And in our third segment, we'll be heading to the Gretsch Drums factory in Ridgeland, South Carolina, to see what kind of drums they're working on these days. So be sure to listen carefully as we discuss Gretsch during the wartime years, 1940 to 1945, as there will be a quiz pertaining to today's topic in our fourth segment. Before we get started on today's topic, I thought we could step back a moment and take a look at what we are really doing with this Gretsch Heritage live stream. With our first Gretsch Heritage broadcast back in October, we started in the year 1872, and now we are chronologically working our way forward through the Gretsch history. I suppose some people could be asking, why does this matter? Why does it matter what kind of drum Chick Webb was playing in the late 30s? Why does it matter what kind of lugs were on this or that drum? Why does it matter what kind of style Kenny Clark was playing in the late 40s? My response is that it all matters. In order to be a truly great drummer, you of course have to understand the importance of feel, but you also have to understand the importance of being in the drum seat. Drumming is power, the power to affect the music and the power to innovate within the music, because that's what drummers have always done. A good understanding of drum history will give your playing and your musicality a frame of reference. Your playing will suddenly reflect the history, and your playing will have a greater story to tell. When you begin to learn about this drum history, you begin to understand the importance of being a drummer. This can be very inspiring, and it will certainly motivate you to become a better drummer, and to study more, and to practice more, and to protect and celebrate the drum heritage and the Gretsch heritage that we all share. With that said, what do you say we dive right into it? We last left off in the year 1939 in the death of Gretch artist Chick Webb, a man who certainly left his mark on the drumming world and left us way too soon. A few months later, Germany invades Poland and ignites World War II, which of course is really going to set the tone for this period of time we are discussing today. In the year 1940, we see the Great Depression is finally over and traditional swing music is everywhere. And with this music symbolizing democracy in a world threatened by tyranny, although acts like Benny Goodman, Duke Ellington, and Louis Armstrong are really thriving at this time, the music industry has some daunting obstacles to face during the war. The U.S. government created the War Production Board, also known as the WPB, which was the regulatory watchdog of all industry in the United States. Production for military equipment was the absolute top priority in America, and as a result, all non-war related manufacturing had to drastically limit its use of metal. This, of course, put a huge damper on Gretsch Drums, which had just released its mechanically elaborate Gretsch Gladstone snare, which of course had to be discontinued through the war. Prominent American drum companies all released a new drum line that would be made mostly of wooden parts. Gretsch competitor Slingerland came out with a drum line called Rolling Bombers. And the amazing George Way and his Leedy Drum Company came out with a line called Dreadnought with wooden lugs. And Gretsch came out with the Gretch Defender drum kit, also with wooden lugs that were even painted silver in order to look like metal lugs. It also had wooden hoops, and even the snare stand was made of wood. Pretty cool. Here's a picture from a Gretch Defender ad with Manny Goldrich from Manny's Music, the legendary music store from Music Row on 48th Street in Midtown Manhattan. My grandfather, William Gretsch, standing next to Manny, Manny's daughter, Helen Manny, sitting on the drums, and the incredible Viola Smith, who played with Phil Spitalny's all-girl orchestra. We're going to take a closer look at Viola's career a bit later in this episode. Now, I'm not sure what the overall marketing concept of this photo shoot was, but I have a sneaking suspicion that Viola Smith and Manny Goodrich were friends, and with my grandfather, and they were just hanging out, perhaps having some fun at the Gretsch offices, and that illustrates the true magical powers of my grandfather, William Gretsch, and his tremendous ability to combine business with friendship in a very significant way. November 28th, 1941 marks the first day of work at the Gretsch factory at 60 Broadway for this gentleman right here, the great Bill Hagner. We are going to talk a lot about Mr. Hagner in upcoming episodes, as he was the production boss for Gretsch in the 50s and 60s. Because Gretsch had the machinery to mass-produce multi-laminate drum hoops, the War Production Board assigned Gretsch the task of manufacturing wooden hoops that would be used in gas masks during the war. Those hoops were similar to bass drum hoops, but were much smaller in diameter. During the war, Gretsch would manufacture musical instruments until 5 p.m., and a night shift would come in and work until 1 a.m. solely making these hoops for gas masks. Here's a picture of the certificate awarded to my grandfather, William Gretsch, from the War Production Board for Gretsch's loyal service to the war effort. Let's take a look at the Gretsch family tree here, shall we? On May 28th, 1940, Walter Gretsch passes away. Seen in the middle to the right, Walter, of course, left the Gretsch business back in 1924 and started his own musical instruments distribution company called Gretsch and Brenner. Gretsch family folklore says that when Walter passed away in 1940, somebody told Fred Gretsch Sr. that his brother Walter had passed. And Fred Gretsch Sr.'s response was, "I don't have a brother, Walter." We have no information about the reason for this broken relationship between the two oldest sons of founders Friedrich and Rosa Gretsch. In any case, in the 1940s, we see the generational transfer of the family business from the second generation to the third generation, from Fred Gretsch Sr. to his two sons, Fred Gretsch Jr. and William Gretsch. Fred Gretsch Sr., seen here second from the right, would retire as president of the Gretsch business in 1942 after an incredible 47-year-long career with Gretsch, assigning his older son, Fred Gretsch Jr., as company president. Seen in this picture on the far right is Fred Gretsch Jr. And but this just happened right after Pearl Harbor, and Japan attacks Pearl Harbor, and Fred Gretsch leaves Gretsch to join the U.S. Navy in the Pacific. Perhaps because he was a manufacturing manager in civilian life, Fred Gretsch Jr. was assigned to the Construction Battalion, which in Navy parlance is known as the Seabees. Fred Gretsch Jr.'s only child, his daughter Helen Gretsch, who goes by the nickname Happy, is my mother's cousin and recently told me about her father's time in the Pacific in the war. In 1943, the U.S. Navy launches another line of assault in the Pacific War. This one would be an island-hopping campaign in the Central Pacific. Up until this point, the U.S. Navy had only been in the Southwest Pacific, places like Australia, New Zealand, New Guinea, the Solomons, and Guadalcanal. But now this area called the Gilbert Islands is about 1,200 miles from Guadalcanal. It's a whole different line of assault that will eventually take the U.S. towards the Philippines. Towards some of the most iconic assaults, island assaults in this war, to places like Iwo Jima, they would go, but they start with another iconic assault on a coral island in the Gilbert Islands called Tarawa. This assault is iconic for a completely different reason. You see, the coral reef surrounding the island was too shallow for landing crafts. All you have to do is look at photographs from this battle, and they are shocking. Photographs of Marines chest deep in water on coral reefs, wading towards the shore with their rifles over the head. All the while, 100 Japanese machine guns from the shore crisscross the water, shooting down the Marines when they are absolutely helpless, just trying to get to the shore. The island is only about half the size of Central Park, but the island was heavily fortified with about 4,700 Japanese troops there. The admiral on the Japanese side claimed that a million soldiers over 100 years could never take the island. The U.S. Marines suffered shocking losses just trying to get to the shore. 17 Japanese prisoners were taken, most of them seriously wounded. Aside from the 17 Japanese prisoners, all of the Japanese soldiers died, either in battle or by committing suicide so as not to be taken prisoner. On the American side, Tarawa, in ratio between casualties and troops engaged, ranks among one of the costliest battles in American military history, with 985 dead and 2,100 wounded. Fred Gretsch Jr. and his Seabees unit arrived the day after the Battle of Tarawa and was assigned the strategically important task of building an airstrip on the island. He was responsible for getting all the materials and supplies there to get the airfield built. Not an easy assignment considering U.S. shipping was busy doing other things at the time. You also have to consider that the Japanese Navy and Air Force were both still threatening, and Tarawa is a very, very long way from San Diego. Here is a picture of the airstrip on Tarawa that Fred Gretsch Jr. built. Of course, building an airfield on an island in the Pacific is certainly a lot different than building guitars and drums in Brooklyn. Fred Gretsch Jr. eventually received a commendation from Admiral Chester Nimitz for his work on building the airstrip, and he was later promoted to commander as the war ended. Fred Gretsch Jr.'s building of the airstrip on Tarawa was significant because 10 weeks later, the U.S. launched a campaign on the Marshall Islands nearby. An aircraft flown from the airstrip on Tarawa proved to be highly valuable in this campaign. The other World War II veteran from the Gretsch family is Richard Gretsch, seen here on the left, sporting his army fatigues. You may recall from previous Gretsch Heritage episodes that Richard never had a career with Gretsch and in the Gretsch family business, but rather he had a career in the lighting business. I recently talked with Richard's son, my mother's cousin Fred B. Gretsch, about his father during World War II. I learned that his father, Richard, had worked in Hollywood doing the lighting for motion pictures when the war broke out. Richard's role during the war was completely different than his older brothers. Richard was assigned the job of managing the lighting for the Army War Show. For those of you that don't know, The Army War Show was a provisional task force established in May 1942 with the aim of showing the general public the military might of the U.S. Army, while raising money for the Army Emergency Relief Fund. Here's a picture. Yeah, here's a picture of the inside pages of the program from the Army War Show. The show incorporated weapons firings, tank maneuvers, cavalry riding, and tactical formation demonstrations. There was even a Jeep comedy routine and a Jeep jamboree. How about that? The Army show toured 18 U.S. cities for the latter part of 1942, ending just before Christmas in Atlanta. Here's a picture of the Army War Show from Soldiers Field in Chicago. Richard Gretsch was in charge of all the lighting for these shows, and you can see from this picture he was not messing around. These shows were seen by sellout crowds in enormous stadiums. It's even reported that 81,000 people attended the show at Cleveland Municipal Stadium in September. As the guy responsible for lighting these huge spectacles, Richard Gretsch would arrive a couple weeks prior to a show to start getting set up in the stadiums where the show would be. In a Chicago newspaper clipping, he's quoted as saying, "We use between 11 and 12 miles of wire, carry 225 lighting fixtures, spots and floods, and a complete switch system for the remote control of all stadium lighting. The show's own lighting system is a 540 kilowatt setup to which 500 kilowatts will be added by use of the stadium's old system. Enough juice," the Army engineer explained, "to light 20,000 lamps of 50-watt capacity." Certainly a very interesting job to do during the war. The remaining son in the family is, of course, my grandfather, William Gretsch, who was running the Chicago office when the war broke out. William is seen here second from the left in civilian's clothing. William Gretsch had polio from a young age, so that one leg was shorter than the other, which made him walk with a limp. This, of course, made him ineligible for the service. When Fred Gretch Jr. joined the Navy in 1942, my grandfather moved to New York and became president of the Gretsch Company. In December of 1942, he marries my grandmother, Maxine Sylvia Gretsch, who is standing in the middle of this picture. This marriage would result in 4 children. Their first child was my Aunt Charlotte, born on March 17th, 1944. Here's a picture of my grandparents, William and Sylvia, together with Sylvia's mother, Hattie Dieter, and their 6-month-old baby daughter, Charlotte. Fast forward in time, and here's a picture of William and Sylvia's 4 kids taken in 1963. From left to right, you have my mom, Gretchen Gretsch, my Aunt Charlotte Gretsch, my Aunt Katie Gretsch, and my Uncle Fred Gretsch, who is the current owner of the Gretsch Company. These kids' father, my grandfather, William Gretsch, had the reputation of being a prankster. You may recall the story of him putting a toilet on the roof of his dormitory at the University of Michigan, which got him kicked out of school. But my grandfather was also just a really hard worker. He was the kind of guy whose friendships always developed into business relationships. During the war, he was very politically involved and was networking within the Washington crowd. He made a great contact with a Colonel Bronson, who headed the music department in the Army Service Forces in New York. They struck a deal where Gretsch would deliver thousands of entertainment kits to be shipped to servicemen. These kits included Gretsch ukuleles, Gretsch harmonicas, and yes, even Gretsch ocarinas. Here is a picture of a young Duke Kramer seen here in the middle playing an ocarina with some friends. And you may recall from our last Gretsch Heritage episode that Duke began working for Gretsch in 1935 and would stay with the company in various roles until 2005. Duke tells the story of how when he was on his way overseas in the Army's 3rd Armor Division, my grandfather, William Gretsch, called Colonel Bronson and asked him to put in a special request to have Duke Kramer move to an administrative role for the music branch of the Special Services in New York. So Duke was transferred to this desk job, and soon after, Duke's 3rd Armor Division went to the Battle of the Bulge, and everybody got annihilated. Duke, of course, was forever grateful to my grandfather for saving his life. Let's take a look at what some of the prominent Gretsch artists of the time were doing during the war, shall we? Many artists continue to keep their careers active by enlisting into one of the armed forces bands. Count Basie drummer Papa Joe Jones was invited to go to Washington and join the Navy band, but he insisted on joining the infantry and soldiered in the Army. He left the drum seat in the Count Basie band, a fellow Gretsch artist, Shadow Wilson, who Papa Joe Jones regarded as the greatest natural drummer that ever lived. Papa Joe Jones really struggled in the Army and never could adjust to Army life with all its rigidity and prejudices. Now we've got Dave Tuff, Gretsch artist Dave Tuff, had been playing with 𝗟𝗏𝗘𝗧𝗦𝗔 experience for only a few months when Pearl Harbor happened. And 𝗟𝗏𝗘𝗧𝗦 decided to join the Navy and start the 𝗟𝗏𝗘𝗧𝗏 service band. Dave Tuff followed him, but very reluctantly. Dave Tuff was a scrawny guy in really poor physical shape. He was also an alcoholic, so the Navy almost didn't let him in. He was known to fall off the bandstand on several occasions, and when 𝗟𝗏𝗘𝗧𝗦 had a big upcoming concert, say for the crew of an aircraft carrier, 𝗟𝗏𝗘𝗧𝗏 would assign a guy to watch Dave Tuff during the day to make sure he didn't drink too much. 1942, this gentleman here, Louis Bellson, graduates from high school and gets spotted by Freddie Goodman, Benny Goodman's brother, at a gig. Louis gets invited to audition for Benny Goodman and gets the job. Louis Bellson starts playing Gretsch in the same year and would remain a Gretsch artist for the next 20 years. Now let's go back to that 1944 Gretsch advert featuring Manny Goldrich on the left from Manny's Music, located on Music Row on West 48th Street in Manhattan. Standing next to Manny is my grandfather, William Gretsch, and on the drums is Manny's daughter, Helen. But the real star of this picture is the amazing Gretsch artist, Viola Smith, standing on the right. Viola was a trailblazing drummer, once heralded as the fastest girl drummer in the world. She passed away last year at the incredible age of 107. Interestingly enough, she studied with Radio City Music Hall drummer and Gretsch artist Billy Gladstone and gained recognition as the drummer for the Coquettes and later with Phil Spitalny's all-girl band comprising of 32 band members. As you can see here, she had some innovative things going on with her toms and her tom placement on the sides. Very, very cool. Another prominent Gretsch artist from the time was Mary McClanahan, who also had a stint with Phil Spitalny's all-girl orchestra. This ad here was the very first appearance by a female drummer in a major percussion company ad. Charmed with the tone and beauty of my new Gretsch Gladstone ensemble, it reads. Here is Mary again on the cover of the 1941 Gretsch catalog. It's amazing to think how difficult it must have been for drummers like Viola Smith and Mary McClanahan to rise to prominence in an entirely male-dominated profession in the 1930s and 40s. It's during the war that we see another extremely significant Harlem club called Minton's Playhouse emerge, where the manager, Teddy Hill, seen here on the right, served food and drinks to musicians willing to come up on stage and jam. This was a place where professional musicians went after hours and could be free from the regimentation of traditional swing bands. The house band featured Thelonious Monk and Gretsch artist Kenny Clark. Now, Kenny Clark would prove to be super relevant to the emergence of bebop drumming, because he would be amongst the first to stop playing just four on the floor in the traditional swing style. And he put a heavier volume on his ride cymbal, more emphasis, and he started mixing things up with his left hand, comping on the left hand and dropping bombs with his bass drum, more sparing bass drum playing perhaps, and dropping the bombs. And it was just kind of a twisting up the current swing style, and it extremely innovative at the time. And it was really the first hints of the bebop drum sound. The old steady rhythm of the dance band was broken up by this new way of drumming, for sure. And the rhythm section was now freer to interact with the horns. And it was much less danceable, but certainly more advanced in many ways, and a more abstract approach to music. And it was just This whole style was really built substantially on Gretsch artist Kenny Clark's rhythmic ideas. In the spring of 1945, Germany finally surrenders and the war is over. And on November 26, 1945, Charlie Parker, Dizzy Gillespie, a 19-year-old Miles Davis, Curly Russell, and this gentleman right here, Gretsch artist Max Roach, all go in the studio and record the track Coco. This track would unleash the great Charlie Parker just after the recording ban of 1942 ended. It's around this time that we see the decline in popularity of swing music and the rise of bebop, led by some incredibly innovative musicians like Dizzy Gillespie and Charlie Parker. Within the Gretsch organization, it's interesting to reflect on the role that the greatest generation played at Gretsch. After the war, you had key Gretsch managers like Duke Kramer, Phil Grant, and Fred Gretch Jr. returning back to work after the war in their late 20s or 30s. But it's interesting to think that when things really took off for Gretsch in the 1950s and 1960s, these World War II vets were in their 40s and 50s and in their prime business years when things really got rolling for Gretsch. So we shall close out the wartime era with this Gretsch Drums celebration at Carnegie Hall on December 29th, 1945. So many of the people we've talked about in today's program appear in this amazing photograph, which was given to us by Richard Dixon's granddaughter. Richard Dixon, of course, is the English drum builder that emigrated to America and built drums for Gretsch from 1925 to 1954. He is standing fourth from the right. Just to the right of him is my grandfather, William Gretsch. The tall gentleman standing to the left of Richard in front of the white snare is Phil Grant, who was just starting his career at Gretsch at this time and will be a driving force as an artist relations manager in the coming decades. Just behind Phil with the glasses is Duke Kramer, who worked an incredible 70 years for Gretsch from 1935 to 2005. Standing front and center with the white handkerchief in his breast pocket is Fred Gretch Jr., who will be the company president from 1948 to 1967. The woman standing to the left of Fred Gretch Jr. is Gretch artist Viola Smith, and the other woman in the picture, fourth from the left, is Gretch artist Mary McClanahan. Certainly a talented crowd and some beautiful looking drums as well. So with that, we shall close our segment on the wartime years. This picture of the Gretsch family was taken on Sea Island in Georgia in 1942. Sea Island is right next to St. Simon's, where my Aunt Dinah and Uncle Fred currently reside. So it's all connected. Thank you for listening. We shall now switch gears a bit and turn our focus to the beautiful nation of Norway. As someone who has lived in Denmark for the last 20 years, I've always felt a very close relationship to my Scandinavian neighbors, Sweden and Norway, and the very active Gretsch communities in those countries. In 2017, Morgan Ogren and I attended the annual Drummers Christmas Party in Oslo, Norway, an event held every year for all the professional drummers in Norway. I could tell you, it was quite a party. And it became very clear that this was a very close-knit drumming community in Norway that had a lot going on musically. And today, I am delighted to welcome to our show the man who is considered to be Norwegian's drum guru, shall we say, Norway's answer to Steve Maxwell, perhaps. He is the drum manager for a big, huge guitar and drum music store called Gitarhuset, which is one of the largest music store chains in Scandinavia. Please welcome to Gretsch Heritage, Geir Digernes.
Hello.
Hello, Geir. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's an honor to be on.
Great to see you. You look like you're in a beautiful room full of many beautiful objects.
Yeah, these are drums. That's what as you can see, there's a lot of Gretsch around or behind me at the moment. Yeah.
That's amazing. What a coincidence, huh?
Yeah. Who would have thought that?
Well, it's good to see you, my friend. It's so nice to have you on this show. And we've met a couple times in person, and now we meet Corona style over the internet. Yeah. So today we are talking about the wartime years in 1940 to 1945, and I thought maybe do you know anything about your grandparents? What they were doing during World War II?
Oh yeah. On my father's side, my grandfather was he had a factory making carpets, and because of that, he was kind of looked after by the Germans. There was always a guard outside in the factory, but he wasn't allowed to produce anything or to have the factory running. So he would sign up as an ambulance driver, and doing that, he also got in touch with the resistance community in Norway. That was a huge movement because we didn't have any huge army or anything. So
Norway was during World War II. Norway was occupied by
the
Germany.
Germans.
Yeah.
So and he told me stories, but I can't tell them all because partly I don't remember them all. But basically, he was picking up resistant people that was pursued by the Germans, or they were
resistance fighters.
Yeah, and they were hiding away, and because the Germans would arrest them and put them in jail. So I would transport them with the ambulance, because with an ambulance you could get to places where you normally couldn't drive, or you wasn't allowed to. So they smuggle these persons to harbors or onto boats, and they would sail over to England and get them in safety.
Amazing.
So that was
What an amazing story, and he's really a hero, isn't he? And it's incredible. The resistance, the underground resistance, both in Norway and Denmark. It's really some amazing stories, and also some wonderful films made about this era and these resistance fires. It's really, really interesting. So let's talk a little bit about your store. And it looks like you are. I assume this isn't your home, right? This is the store you work at.
Well, this is the store, yeah.
Yeah. Let's take a look at some of those Gretsch kits you've got behind you.
Yeah. Right here on my left is the anniversary kit from 17 or 18?
18, yeah.
18, yeah. With the ribbon mahogany finish and nitro lacquer style. 301 hoops with the clothes on it. And, it's just a stunning kit. It sounds amazing. Yeah.
Very nice. That's so looking at that kit, that is in 2018, Gretsch celebrated its 135th anniversary.
That's
and
right.
To celebrate, we made 135 of these special anniversary kits.
Yeah.
They're basically broadcaster kits with 3 plies, but the outer ply isn't maple, it's a ribbon mahogany, which makes kind of a really nice looking finish. Yeah. And now we also
I was told there's only 4 of those kits in Europe. So the one here is only.
Yeah, well, there were only 135 made, so yeah. And there were also we also released a snare drum, which was the aluminum snare drum, which was hand engraved by 𝗟𝗏𝗘𝗧𝗦𝗔, where he hand engraved each snare drum, and it took him many hours for each drum. And you sold this drum as well, I guess.
I ordered it and I got it and sold it. So
yeah, wow, wonderful. And what's the other kit you got there?
Behind me on the other side is the broadcaster in antique marine pearl, which is a very popular kit. This sizes are 24, 13, 16, and sounds really huge. This is the 302 hoops, but it's standard specifications on them. and I prefer that actually.
Yeah.
It's more durable on the road if you want to bring it out and do it up and down all the time. So but its sound is so amazing.
Nice. Very nice. Very nice back.
Some of the Gretsch over there, some Catalinas and sold out for Renown, and Brooklyn sold out for Christmas. So I'm reordering at the moment.
Wow. Very, very nice. Well, I'm glad to hear you're selling a lot of drums these days in this tricky time. Now, is your store, is it closed or partially open? How's the lockdown working in Norway for your store?
Yeah, we've been open the whole time, actually.
Okay. Yeah.
So we have a strict policy and we follow it. So everyone wears a mask, and everyone who comes in has to wear a mask, and also we're using the
hand sanitizer.
Yeah, the sanitizer all the time. And so yeah.
Okay, well that's good. At least you can stay open. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
We had some reduced hours during the first lockdown so we were just reducing the opening hours from 7 in the evening till like 5 in the afternoon. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's nice, isn't it? Can spend some time with the family.
Yeah. Exactly.
So what do you say we take a look at some of the incredible drummers, Gretsch artists in Norway? I talked a little bit about this Christmas party in Norway, where all the drummers come, and it was an incredible time. And I noticed that it was really a special, close-knit drumming community in Norway.
Yeah, it's a really Gard Nielsen, which is one of the guys that we are going to have a closer look at and chat about, and some other of his colleagues started this Christmas party some years back. I can't remember exactly when, but it grew and grew and grew. So we're like 200 drummers gathered together and having a party. And we're having a quiz, like a really nerdy quiz, about drumming and drummers and equipment, everything, And the winner of the quiz is going to make the next year's quiz. So, because they are gathering groups, so they are like several teams, right,
you divide up into teams. I do that. Yeah, that's so funny.
And they mix them together differently each year, so it's going to be fair.
That's great. Yeah, let's take a closer look at Gard Nielsen. Gard, I've known Gard for several years, and wow, what an incredible drummer, and he sent me one of his albums, which I'm going to promote shamelessly here. This is his band, Gard Nielsen's Acoustic Unity live in Europe. And this is just an incredible album. It's just his drumming, so musical, so beautiful, and got the CDs inside. That's pretty cool. Just a great album, and there's his name, Gard Nielsen. You guys, please do check out Gard. He's an incredible artist, and he was in 2019, he was appointed the artist resident seat at the Molde Jazz Festival, the International Jazz Festival. And that's just really quite an, you got another one there.
That's from that recording in Molde, the Supersonic.
Is that right? Okay. So this is the Molde Jazz Festival, which is one of the biggest jazz festivals in the world. And I guess every year they elect someone to be the artist in residence who then plays with everybody or most of the bands.
They also have to compose like for a special concert and event, and
amazing.
Make some compose music and invite people to that, and also be around the whole festival. And
and to give you an idea, in 2000 the artist in residence was Chick Corea. And in 2001, it was Pat Metheny. So there's some really huge names, and just really, it's just so great to see Gard be recognized as a drummer and as an artist. And maybe we've got a couple of video clips of Gard's playing. see what we can dig up here.
Wow. It's so good.
The sound was a bit funny, but you could definitely get an idea of his quirky creativity and gardeners.
It's amazing. It's amazing. He comes to the store all the time, and he sits down behind that, you know, the anniversary kit, and plays the shit out of them. You know.
Cool. Oh yeah, that's great. That's great. Let's talk about another Gretsch artist who you've been working a lot with, Torstein Loftus.
Yeah.
And can you talk a little bit about Torstein?
What can I say? Torstein is one of the most wanted drummers in Norway. In all the, not in the, well, how should I say it? Well, he's played with everyone, every pop artist, every famous artist that you can name from Norway. And he's also a teacher, and he has a lot of influence on a lot of young drummers. I think he is also a teacher at 𝗟𝗣𝗑𝗧𝗦𝗍 Music High School up there. And he's just a great, versatile drummer. That every time I hear him, I'm stunned. You know, the groove he has, the pocket, the technique, the innovative playing style. He's just surprises all the time, and he has so much stamina, and it's musical. Yeah,
well, let's see if we can dial up a video of his playing.
Yeah, it's a band, the trio, Elephant Nine, which is really a progressive trio, kind of organ, bass, and drums, and it's full of energy. Yeah,
amazing. Check it out.
Whoa.
Nice. Okay, good. Very cool. So that was Torstein Loftus, and nice to see a little clip of that. Really nice. There might be another clip we have of him. Let's see. If not, we can just go on and maybe here we go. Here's one. Elephant Nine. Cool. Nice little clip. Very cool. So those are two Norwegian Gretsch artists worth checking out for sure, Geir and Torstein Loftus. And we also talked earlier about the great Ølf Wennerberg, drummer for a-ha, who we've worked quite a bit with, doing interviews and fun videos. And he's also another great Gretsch ambassador for the brand, and of course has the #1 drum seat in Norway.
Yeah.
With a-ha. But just a wonderful guy, and super nice guy. He's also a professor of drums, And it's very, you meet a lot of professional Norwegian drummers, and a lot of them, they're professors. They're teaching at different universities and so forth. You guys really take the academic side of drumming very seriously.
Yeah, lately it's been, I'm quite old, so in my days, when I was young, it was only 2 places you could go, or, but now there's all over the place, everywhere, and there's a lot of young drummers coming up, and the level that they are all in is just beyond what they used to be, and so it's really great. I just hope they find something to use the music and the skills in the future in the music business. That's what well, of course, during these times things can be a bit gloomy, the outlook as far as opportunities in the music business. And, but the opportunities are well, they change. They don't come back as they used to. They show up in different eras and different channels for exposing yourself or expressing yourself.
For sure.
I think, anyway, so because we need to express ourselves, and we find a way anyway.
Absolutely. Can you talk a little bit about some vintage Gretsch kits that you have a strong connection with? Maybe some of the kits that you own personally?
Yeah, I have a 74 Gretsch kit, the stop sign badge, which I dearly love, and it's actually I got it really cheap. I traded it for another kit. I think I bought it for like 450 euros or something like that, and a trading kit.
Wow!
So yeah,
that is cheap. Nice. Good
bargain. Yeah, my childhood, my father was a musician. He's passed away a couple of years ago, but at home there was always jam sessions in the living room. And my father was a drummer before, but he switched to his first instrument, which was the trombone. But he invited in musicians, and they had, I remember waking up Sunday morning, get out in the living room, and there was this drum standing there. And it was a Gretsch kit, the same color as I have, which is the walnut finish. Same as this one, it's just that there is mahogany. And I was just in love with just the look of it. And
how old were you?
10, I think.
Oh, wow. That's a nice present for a 10-year-old.
Well, I didn't get the drums.
Oh,
those drums. That was I just fell in love with them, and I always wanted that kit. It was unable to buy kit. Later on, I bought another one, but there was a Slingerland kit. But when I found this Gretsch kit, I was, I had to have it.
Cool. That's so nice. What a nice story.
Well, just to tell you a little bit, earlier in the 80s, I worked in another store in Oslo. So we imported Gretsch at that time. Jon Christensen, who is another famous Norwegian. He bought drums there for me. One of his Gretsch kits. White. So that's one huge influence as well.
Yeah, Jon Christensen, he passed away. He was at the drummers dinner I was at in 2017, and he passed away recently. Really, probably he was sort of like the patriarch of drummers with his amazing career that he had, such a long and vibrant career. And I was too shy to introduce myself to him, but I saw that he was there, and that's Jon. Very interesting. So, can you talk about we're talking about Jon Christensen? Can you talk about maybe some of the other Gretsch artists from the Gretsch heritage that have influenced you most as a drummer and as a human being?
Yeah, Jeff Porcaro is one of my one great influence. He was known to play a different brand, but in the studio elsewhere, he was also known to always use Gretsch drums. Tony Williams is another huge influence. Max Roach, who I met at the breakfast in Molde Jazz Festival.
Is that right?
When I was like a teenager. My father took me to the concert, and after the next day, it turns out that we stayed at the same hotel, and at the breakfast we saw him, and my father went over and asked if he could sit there.
Oh wow! What do you remember from your conversations with him at breakfast?
Well, I didn't speak that much. My father took over from there, and he was a huge fan. I was introduced to bebop music from my father. He played his records for me all the time. So there's a lot of famous names on these drums, on Gretsch drums, that on the album covers that I have listened to through the years.
Yeah, Joe Jones and Tony Williams. And
Kenny Clark as well. Kenny Clark was huge also.
Sure. Oh, that's great. Sounds like you had a remarkable father, and boy, those of us who are so blessed to have parents or older siblings that can introduce us to music and present us to the world of music to us, like your father did to you. He opened up all these windows of opportunity and windows of creativity and thought. And, it's such a blessing to have people like that in our lives that can do that. And it sounds like your father was really an incredible person.
He was, really, yeah.
I mean, he was at a hotel with you and took you to eat breakfast with Max Roach. So that's pretty amazing.
About music, nothing else matters for him.
Yeah.
And of course, that has put its mark on me as well. We only talk about music. It's a very special relationship we had. The only thing we talked about.
Great. Can you talk a little bit about your music career? Because you're also a drummer. Obviously now times are a little bit strange, but were you playing a lot before the Corona lockdown?
Yes and no. I used to play a lot some years ago for several artists as a freelance musician, and had like 5, 6, 7 different bands or constellations I was involved in, and touring and recording and stuff like that. I got children late in life, but when they became teenagers, I felt that I needed to be more at home and not traveling so much.
Yeah, of course.
That's a very important phase of their lives. So I felt that I needed to be there. But before that, I had many years playing music in different bands. I was my biggest experience, or that I had, was with a band that had a recording contract with Atlantic, which included that we needed to go to the United States and live there, and we toured there. We did a lot of stuff, and that lasted for 3-4 years, and then Nirvana came and took over. That kind of music. Changed the whole record. The whole business changed from there.
So you had a record deal with Atlantic. What kind of music were you playing?
This was like they call it now poodle rock.
Glam rock?
Hair metal.
Wow.
Hair.
Did you have the hair?
Yeah, of course.
Awesome. So you were like Mark Schulman.
so
he was always in hair bands.
So we didn't reinvent ourselves, so we just
grunge music kind of wiped out that whole scene, right?
Yeah, it did, really. So we never came back from that.
Yeah, that's funny. Oh, that's so funny. Very interesting story. So how can people connect with you and learn more about your store, Gitarhuset? Do you have an email or not an email, a homepage that people could check out, or how are you guys posting? Are you selling your drums online?
Yeah, we are. We are Gitarhuset.no, and we just released a new website. I have to say that it's not completed with drums yet. We are still working on some problems that we have implementing all the drums and stuff like that we would like to include. but we're working very hard to get it up at the levels that we want to have it, with everything that we want to have there. Otherwise, you could look us up if you're in town. Come to
Oslo.
In Oslo. And we have a lot more stuff here than on our website. Of course, we have a lot of special stuff. And so a lot of drummers come here all the time, and you can meet all these heroes.
Yeah, cool. And we invite you on the show because your store and the work you do is just so impressive. You're such a great ambassador for the drumming community, not just the Gretsch drumming community, but the greater drumming community. And it's just so great to have people like you working with Gretsch and promoting Gretsch and doing Gretsch clinics and just working hard to promote the brand internationally and in places like Norway. And so we're really grateful for all that you do every day for the Gretsch brand. And it's much more fun in this business because of Gretsch, because they have such a long line of history that are consistent. And I really appreciate that, because then you have something that are real, stays the same, and it's just with identity and personality. That's something I also think about a lot, and I remember a conversation I had with Stanton Moore where he was talking about the timelessness of things, and how he's attracted to things that are timeless, that don't belong to a certain era, things that are timeless, objects that are timeless, and products that are timeless, that you can't associate with any age or time. And that's something that Gretsch has always tried to achieve, and it's something we continue to work on, is to keep the products and to keep the brand timeless, so that it's a singular force in the drumming community. And if we can achieve that, or we can come close to achieve that, then we like to think that we're doing it right. So I'm happy that you acknowledge that and that you mentioned that.
Absolutely. Because anyway.
Well, thank you so much for joining us here on Gretsch Heritage, and we will be in touch, my friend. Let's hope that this Corona nonsense ends soon, and I can come back to the Christmas party next Christmas.
I hope I see you soon, and so you're welcome anytime.
Great, thank you for joining us, Geir, and keep in touch, and thank you again from the bottom of my heart and on behalf of the Gretsch family and the Gretsch community. Thank you for all your hard work, my friend.
Thank you for letting me on. It's been
Thank you, Geir. Take care, my friend. Thanks for coming on. Bye-bye. It's now time to move on to our next segment of our show, and that is a visit to the Gretsch Drums factory in Ridgeland, South Carolina. Today, we're really going to get hands-on in the production process. Please enjoy this video where we have Lee showing us the sanding process. Let's have a look.
Hello, everyone. I'm 𝗟𝗡𝗘𝗧𝗦𝗔. I've worked at Gretsch for about 10 years. So, the next part of the process is we're going to sand the edge. First, we do 80 to get all the rough bits out. I'll do the round over. I'm going to add the round over. Same thing on the other side of the 80. We're going to go to the 120, kind of smooth things out. Reinforce the round over each side. seal it with wax. Get some cloth, varnish it a little bit, make sure it's in there. Put the tie off. A drum is born, it's a boy.
There you have it, folks. That was pretty cool watching the sanding process. And I'm thinking when you've got an 80 grit sandpaper in your hand and the drum is on that wheel spinning so fast, you really can shape the bearing edge any way you want with an 80 grit. Very interesting to see that process. And he did it very nonchalantly, but I know it's probably something he's done so many times. And just wonderful team at the Ridgeland factory. And we are so grateful for them and their hard work that they put into making those beautiful drums every day. So let's move on to this week's quiz question, which should be very easy if you were listening carefully in the first segment covering Gretch history from 1940 to 1945. There's the t-shirt. We will be awarding this t-shirt to the first 3 people who respond correctly to the question in either YouTube or the Facebook chat. And the question is, what is the name of the Gretch artist that replaced Papa Joe Jones in the Count Basie Orchestra during World War II? I will repeat the question. What is the name of the Gretch artist that replaced Papa Joe Jones in the Count Basie Orchestra during World War II? While Papa Joe Jones went off to war and chose willingly to be a soldier and not just a musician in the army. Very interesting. So good luck on that quiz. I hope whoever gets the shirt sends me a quick picture. I love seeing pictures of the winners with the shirt on. It's very uplifting to see that. Okay, I think we're going to start slowly winding things down here. Be sure to check our other flagship live stream called Generations, which brings together 2 amazing drummers, one veteran who's been playing Gretsch for years and one relative newbie to the Gretsch family. The next Generations episode is on Wednesday, January 27th. So that's a week from today. And we'll feature Gretch artist Ashton Irwin, whom I haven't met yet, and one of my favorite drummers and human beings, the great 𝗟𝗩𝗘𝗧𝗦𝗔. Carl, of course, is the drummer for Robbie Williams and James Blunt and is admired by drummers around the world for his ability to manage having those 2 top-level gigs simultaneously without there being any scheduling conflict. It's always a wonder how he does that. Maybe it's just luck, or maybe it's just 𝗟𝗩𝗘𝗧𝗦𝗔's willpower to tell the managers when the tour should be. Who knows, but maybe he'll talk about how he manages that next week. Also, be sure to check out the DW playlist party, which features both Gretsch and DW artists talking about some of the records that have influenced them. This is a lot of fun to watch. And yesterday we had 𝗟𝗩𝗘𝗧𝗦𝗘 on, who talked about some amazing records like Herbie Hancock's 1973 album, Headhunters, featuring the drumming of the great Gretsch Grandmaster Harvey Mason. Also check out the DW playlist party from 3 weeks ago featuring Gretsch artist Cindy Blackman, who talked about some of the albums that have influenced her, like Max Roach's Drums Unlimited from 1966 and The Essential Joe Jones from 1977. Cindy is extremely knowledgeable of drum history and jazz history and has been a major inspiration for the Gretsch Heritage program here. We will have to see if we can get her on as a guest one of these days. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. And finally, of course, please join us next month for episode 6. Can you believe it? We've already done 5, and now we're moving on to the 6th installment of Gretsch Heritage, entitled Broadcaster and the Rise of Bebop. This will be aired live on Wednesday, February 17th at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we will talk about what what's going on with Gretsch in the late 40s, the emergence of bebop and broadcaster drums. Looking forward to that one for sure. That's about all we have for you folks today. Be sure to shoot me a DM over Instagram at Lucas Von Gretsch so we can connect, engage, and discuss. And a special thanks to Scott Donnell, Andrew Shreve, Jules Thomas, and all the folks at DW for being such great partners for the Gretsch family. Thanks, of course, to my Aunt Dinah, Uncle Fred, and the crew at the Pooler office. Also, the amazing Gretsch Drums production crew in Ridgeland, South Carolina. Also, a special thanks to my wife, Papacia, and my daughters, Sylvia and Ramona. And lastly, special thanks to Opa, Richie, and Maggie, my Aunt Katie Gretsch, Happy and Ernie Copley, cousin Fred B. Gretsch, and all my beautiful Gretsch cousins. This one, too, is for Gigi. In the words of my Uncle Fred Gretsch, be safe, be well, be musical, my friends. Good night, everyone.